Hi, my name's Eric. I'll be reading you selections from today's Cape Cod Times, dated Monday, March 23rd of 2026. And we will start with the weather, as we always do. Across the Cape and Islands today, well, mostly cloudy, showers. Right now, it's raining. It's early morning right now, but it is raining pretty heavily. It's going to be windy. We'll have mostly clouds and sprinkling all day today. A high of 39 expected tonight. It gets pretty chilly, a low of 28, which is pretty chilly compared to the rest of the week. Tomorrow, Tuesday, partly sunny, high of 40, low of 33. On Wednesday, mostly cloudy, high of 46, low of 36. On Thursday, partly sunny, breezy in the afternoon, the nicest day of the week it looks like, high of 50, low of 38. And on Friday, cloudy with rain becoming intermittent, high of 46 and a low of 27 as the temperatures drop overnight again. Now, heading to the front of the paper, where the Cape Cod Times used to keep their lottery results, and we source these out and read them because somebody asked for them. And if there's something you would like read to people who are blind or print disabled, you can email us at info@audiblelocalledger.org or call us at 508-539-2030, and we'll consider reading it. And if you miss any of the information that we share in our readings, you can always go to audiblelocalledger.org, click on the Listen tab. It's a fully disability-compliant website, and under All Reads to the Blind, you can find 150 of our most recent recordings. So it's about maybe 10 days to 2 weeks worth of recordings, and you can catch up on anything you might have missed. We also keep a wide variety of periodicals and literature there for your listening enjoyment, as well as shopping guides, which come out on Friday night and are aired on Saturday at noon and on Sunday at 11 for 2 hours. You can find out what's on sale at the supermarket. All of that free for people who are blind or print disabled at audiblelocalledger.org. For the latest lottery results in the numbers game, we go to the lottery's website, masslottery.com, and for the numbers game of Sunday, March 22nd, in the midday drawing, the results were 8217. Again, yesterday's midday drawing of the numbers game, 8217. In the evening drawing last night for Sunday, March 22nd, the results were 6630. Again, last night's numbers game results in the evening drawing, 6630. Good luck to all who play, and remember us if you win. From the front page of today's Cape Cod Times, coastal erosion dominates the front page. Get them off the board, in quotes. Eroding Cape Cod homes are going to land trusts, by Zane Razak. In North Eastham, when Elaine Dam bought the 2-bedroom ranch at 160 Brownell Road in 2013, it felt like she could touch the stars. The home was perched on a quiet bluff above the Atlantic, tucked into a secluded neighborhood. While a real estate agent had disclosed before purchase that the parcel sat on shoreline vulnerable to coastal erosion, Dam figured she'd get 20 years out of the vacation spot and forge memories there with family. She was taken aback by how quickly the bluff receded. Dam lost feet after every nor'easter. Each time she stood at the sink to wash dishes, she could see more of the ocean, and the edge of the bluff inched closer to her Adirondack chairs. It was such a special slice of heaven for me, but it became worrisome, said Dam of New Jersey. I couldn't lose any more land. I loved it so much I wanted to capture it. I wanted to keep it forever. Cape Cod coastal homeowners like Dam face increasingly urgent choices as erosion escalates, weighing whether to rebuild, to relocate, or give up steadily disappearing land. The Cape Cod Regional Policy Plan of 2025 highlights coastal erosion as a top concern among Cape residents who completed a survey. second only to affordable housing. The Times is taking a deep dive into coastal erosion issues on Cape Cod and Nantucket. What to do with 160 Brownell Road on an eroding bluff? Dam considered tearing the Brownell Roadhouse down and instead building a small studio pushed closer to the lot line, but a neighbor opposed the plan. Selling it would leave someone else in a similar dilemma, and the home risked tumbling into the ocean. She also didn't want to turn the cottage into a rental, saying she wanted to cherish it. Instead, she demolished the house and transferred the property over to the Eastham Conservation Foundation in December of 2018. Since then, the foundation has let the land slowly return to its natural condition. "We just leave it alone and watch it go," said Henry Lind, president of Eastham Conservation Foundation of parcels now under its care. The now empty lot is immediately adjacent to a bungalow at 157 Brownell Road, also on the edge of the retreating cliff, that made national headlines when it was placed on the market. A sale is pending, according to Zillow, after the price dropped to $99,000. More property owners, especially in Wellfleet and Eastham, are choosing to demolish vulnerable houses and donate the parcels to nonprofit conservation groups as shoreline loss accelerates along the Cape Cod National Seashore. For instance, in Wellfleet, a donation off Ocean View Drive is pending. Mark Robinson, executive director of the Compact of Cape Cod Conservation Trusts, said these transfers of unstable lots take them out of play. They will erode away. Some of them are already halfway down the bluff, and some of them may go out to sea, he said. But in the meantime, it's useful to get them off the board and get them into protective status so there's nobody trying to do anything with them in the future and cause more trouble than it's worth. About 600 private lots, most of them developed, exist within the National Seashore, he said. Although the National Seashore can receive parcels, the process can be cumbersome and expensive, said Robinson. Local land trusts and nonprofit groups are suited to make this a more manageable process, he said. I think that's why people have come to us, the land trust community, to facilitate these transfers, said Robinson. On a recent Wednesday, Lind visited the 0.44-acre site at 305 Nauset Light Beach Road, about half a mile south of the former dam property. The property was transferred to the Eastham Conservation Foundation last October after its 3-bedroom home was destroyed in a fire. Some winters, this area can lose 8 to 10 feet of bluff, said Lind. The trees dotting the lot are stubby, Lind noted, their growth hindered by the constant wind. Shoreline loss here is driven by an offshore bar, typically a sandbar, about a quarter-mile offshore, that trips the waves as they come in. If the offshore bar disappears, the waves don't break, and instead they crash directly into the shoreline, and all that energy then goes to the slope, said Lind. The first erosion-driven transfer came in 1984, when a bluffside cottage was eventually relocated and now serves as the town swap shop. About 2 weeks after Dam's conveyance in 2018, the land at 160 Nauset Light Beach Road was gifted to the foundation. The 2-bedroom, 1950s-era bungalow close to Nauset Light was declared unsafe for occupancy by the town and demolished in 2018 due to shoreline erosion. Property owners can usually secure a federal income tax benefit after placing a lot into a nonprofit conservation group. To claim it, the owner needs to have a third-party appraisal of what the parcel was worth at the time of the transfer. Today, the Eastham Conservation Foundation also requires sites be vacant before donated. Once a structure is cleared, the habitat can begin to recover, said Lind. Plants return first, followed by insects and mammals that gradually repopulate the area. The less chopped up a habitat area is, the better it's for all the inhabitants, said Lind. The birds and bees and whatnot prefer something not segmented or divided up. Losing the bungalow was sad, said Dam, and she lamented the money she lost. But she called donating her parcel to the foundation the sweetest experience. It was wonderful. It was easy. It filled my heart. It made me happy, she said. They were so appreciative that I was doing this and that the land was going back to them. Erosion is a process, not a problem, Lind said, and one of the organization's jobs is education. We've got to teach people that, yes, it's a dynamic system and it's going to move, he said. Yes, it's beautiful, but nature bats last. As usual, on Mondays there's very little local news. We'll move to the Cape and Islands section of today's Cape Cod Times. Today's date is March 23rd, a Monday. SAVE Acts, partisan impact unclear. As President Donald Trump has pushed congressional Republicans to pass stiff new voter registration requirements, he's argued that the legislation will benefit their party in the upcoming election. It will guarantee the midterms, Trump told Republican lawmakers gathered March 9th at his Doral, Florida golf resort. He urged them to make it their number one priority. If you don't get it, big trouble, my opinion. The fact that Republicans have been so gung-ho for the bill, known informally as the SAVE Act, suggests they do believe their party would benefit in a year when forecasters project they may lose control of the House of Representatives. Meanwhile, Democrats uniformly oppose the Safeguard American Voter Eligibility Act, and voting rights and civil rights advocates worry it could disenfranchise many voters who lack access to proof of citizenship. But would the SAVE Act actually give Republicans a partisan advantage? Well, the evidence is unclear. The bill would require Americans to show documentary proof of citizenship, such as a birth certificate, a passport, or naturalization documents, to register to vote in federal elections. Provisions under consideration could also greatly restrict or eliminate mail-in voting, and would create a national requirement to show a government-issued photo ID to vote, which is currently only needed in some states. Democrats overwhelmingly say they support election security and voter ID measures to make sure non-citizens and other ineligible people can't register or vote, while noting that such cases are extremely rare. But they say the bill's proof of citizenship requirements for registration would block many eligible voters. Under the SAVE Act, you can't use your driver's license to register to vote, Democratic Senator Tammy Duckworth of Illinois said in a March 19th post on X. Republicans want you to buy a passport instead, if you can afford one. This is a modern-day poll tax. One of the most widely cited findings in the debate comes from research by the Center for Democracy and Civic Engagement at the University of Maryland, which has been researching the issue for many years. In a March 2025 report called Who Lacks Documentary Proof of Citizenship, the center took 3 in-depth surveys, including a nationally representative sample of the adult U.S. citizen population. Many Americans of all political identities lack DPOC, which is Documentary Proof of Citizenship, the study said. More research is needed to understand how, if at all, the SAVE Act would impact electoral outcomes. The national survey found that those who lacked easy access to proof of citizenship were disproportionately younger and people of color, two demographic groups that tend to vote more for Democrats than Republicans. But the center also took 2 state-level surveys in Georgia and Texas and found that the results suggest that the political impact may vary state by state. In the Texas survey, the center said, more Republicans than Democrats reported not currently having citizenship documentation at all, or not being able to easily access it. In its Georgia study, the authors wrote, we found roughly even numbers of Democrats and Republicans were impacted. In recent weeks, Trump said he won't sign bills until the Senate follows the House's lead and passes the SAVE Act. The GOP's push to do so recently has faced stiff opposition. not only from Democrats, but also from some Republicans who are unwilling to eliminate the Senate's filibuster and its de facto supermajority requirement to pass it, as Trump demands. If it does pass, tens of millions of Americans could be affected. The Brennan Center for Justice at New York University found in 2024 that more than 21 million American citizens did not have easy access to proof of citizenship documents that this bill would require. And at least 3.8 million people didn't possess any of those documents at all, often because they were lost, destroyed, or stolen, according to the Brennan Center report, which was done with the Maryland Center for Democracy and Civic Engagement and two other voting rights groups, Vote Riders and Public Wise. The Brennan Center report also uncovered some evidence of racial disparity, with 8% of self-identified white American citizens lacking ready access to citizenship documents, but nearly 11% of Americans of color in a similar position. Analysts say the proposed law could impact voters of both parties in different ways nationally and state by state, given their existing election policies and protocols. Married women who changed their names, the elderly, young individuals, Hispanic citizens, and low-income Americans will have the most trouble registering to vote under the SAVE Act, according to a January of 2025 analysis by the nonpartisan Institute for Responsive Government. In a recent analysis, the Washington Post found that rural voters, a group Trump won by a 30-point margin in 2024, are less likely to have passports. Adding to that unpredictability, the Post said, was the fact that Republicans attract more male, working class, and first-time voters who tend to have lower education levels and less access to documentation. Older Americans across party lines are likely to face some of the most significant documentation hurdles, including mismatched or missing records, according to the March 17th Save America Act guide by the nonpartisan AARP, formerly known as the American Association of Retired Persons. Those who have moved often over the span of their lives, or have moved out of their homes and into nursing or assisted living facilities, may have an especially tough time gathering the required proof of eligibility, such as a birth certificate. And that could prove significant, the AARP said in another report from October of 2024, because older adults are a major force in deciding U.S. elections. Voters 65 and older have had the highest turnout of any age group since 1988, with 72% casting ballots in 2020, the AARP guide said. Our next headline, Cape native Giardino wants to serve the public as district attorney, by Susan Vaughn. After 14 years as an assistant district attorney, Michael Giardino has decided to try for the top job of district attorney for the Cayman Islands, saying he believes in the importance of the work the office does for the community he's lived in his whole life. There's a lot of good you can do in this job, he said during an interview on March 17th, referring to helping victims and individuals suffering from mental health or substance abuse disorders. I find it to be very rewarding, he added. Giardino, who's 45 years old, attended Yarmouth schools, graduated with a finance degree from Bentley College, and had 2 internships at the Cayman Islands District Attorney's Office while attending Suffolk University Law School. After graduation in 2012, he worked in that office for 12 years and has been in the Plymouth District Attorney's Office since November of 2024. He lives in Hyannis and is single with a large extended family. Giardino is running as a Democratic challenger to current District Attorney Robert J. Gallibois, who's held the position since January of 2023. They will face off in the statewide primary September 1st, and the winner will move on to the general election on November 3rd. Based on his career experience and as a Cape Cod native, Giardino said he has noticed some trends that concern him in the current administration of the District Attorney's Office, and he believes he can help address these issues. Giardino said he believes the current DA's office suffers from high turnover, including prosecutors and support staff, that creates institutional instability. It's my opinion, based on my experience, that losses like this result in a negative effect on the community and employees, he said. The victims are lacking the attention and services they deserve that can be directly tied to the loss of dedicated professionals, he said. The district attorney's office is a place where career professionals should want to stay, he said. I have the perspective to understand what resources are needed and what the individuals are going through so they can be productive and want to stay. Giardino said another reason he's running for the office is reports he's heard of stressed relationships between the DA's office and its law enforcement partners. Broken communications with law enforcement can lead to inefficiency, instability in investigations, and missed opportunities to hold offenders accountable, he said. He also criticized the district attorney's lawsuit against Barnstable County Sheriff Donna Buckley that was dismissed in court in 2024. Giordano said he believes the suit resulted in a fractured leadership and that conflicts should be resolved in conversation and collaboration instead. We're all working together for the same good, he said. Giardino said good leadership is based on experience and cited his unique institutional knowledge and relationships with police, victims, the court system, and the community that he believes are necessary when leading an office. It's my feeling that this job isn't about politics. This job is about service, and that's why I've dedicated my career and my life to it. If the job is done right, politics will take care of itself. He said this is his first venture into politics. What are his priorities? He listed several that he would address immediately if elected. First, he would seek to prioritize public safety by holding violent and serious offenders accountable, and also focus on community competence and crime prevention. Community competence is a sociological term that says an agency must take into account the customs and social fabric of the community it serves. He said he would continue making sure those suffering from substance abuse get the treatment they need. He would also try to address turnover, rebuild the victim advocates' efforts, and foster good relationships with law enforcement. I want to be a leader who communicates and deals with employees, he said. My goal as district attorney is to restore trust, fairness, and accountability in public safety across the Cape and Islands. Because Giardino has limited time to work on his campaign while working full-time, he said he's relying on a good team who can walk me through the process. A campaign kickoff event was held on March 11th, and his campaign team is gathering the 1,000 signatures that need to be certified by the towns to be on the ballots. This job is important to me. This office is important to me. The work is important, Giardino concluded. This is the community I love and the community I want to serve. Our next headline, Get Certified for New Massachusetts Boating Law by Beth McDermott of the Provincetown Banner. The Chatham Flotilla of the U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary will offer a one-day boating skills course this spring and summer at 2 locations, according to a community announcement. The Boat America course will take place at the Chatham Community Center, 702 Main Street in Chatham, and the Stonehorse Yacht Club, 2 Harbor Road, in Harwichport. At the Chatham Community Center, classes are scheduled for 8:30 a.m. to 3 p.m., April 11th, May 30th, June 20th, and August 1st. The Stonehorse Yacht Club will host the course from 4 to 7 p.m., June 30th and July 1st, spreading the one-day class over 2 evenings. The Boat America course covers navigation rules, legal requirements, safe operation, and emergency procedures on the water. It also includes instructions on trailering, storing, and protecting boats. Certified Coast Guard Auxiliary instructors will lead the sessions. The course meets all certification requirements for boaters under a new Massachusetts law that will require all vessel operators to have a safe boating certificate by 2026. To enroll, visit the Chatham Flotilla website at chathamcgau.org. ChatGAUX.org. That's ChathamCGAUX.org, and follow the link to boating courses. The fee is $50 per participant and can be paid via PayPal or by credit or debit card via PayPal. Course materials will be provided in class. Participants are encouraged to arrive at least 15 minutes before the start time. The Coast Guard Auxiliary, established by Congress in 1939, is the volunteer component of the U.S. Coast Guard, supporting various service missions. For more information, visit cgaux.org. That's CG for Coast Guard, Auxiliary AUX, cgaux.org. This story was created with the assistance of artificial intelligence, but journalists were involved in every step of the information gathering, the review, editing, and publishing process. Back on the front page, ICE agents are sent to assist strained TSA agents at airports, by Catherine Palmer of USA Today. President Donald Trump said immigration and customs enforcement agents will be sent to airports to assist understaffed Transportation Security Administration agents starting March 23rd, amid the ongoing partial government shutdown. The announcement comes a day after the president first threatened to deploy the Federal Immigration Enforcement Agency to address the growing crisis, sparked by the ongoing funding fight in Congress and exacerbated by an influx of spring break travelers. On Monday, ICE will be going to airports to help our wonderful TSA agents who have stayed on the job despite the fact that the radical left Democrats, who are only focused on protecting hardline criminals who have entered our country illegally, are endangering the USA by holding back the money that was long ago agreed to with signed and sealed contracts, Trump wrote in a social media post on March 22nd. In comments the day before, the president said he would also have the ICE agents arrest people who have entered the U.S. without authorization, especially those coming from Somalia, a country he has repeatedly criticized. It's not clear if the March 23rd deployment will only see ICE agents assisting TSA agents in their prescribed duties, or if their mandate will also include immigration enforcement at airports. Customs and Border Patrol agents primarily manage immigration control at airports. Flooding in Hawaii leads to evacuations and damage, by Dina Voiles-Pulver and Janine Santucci of USA Today. Evacuation orders were lifted on March 21st, and cleanup began after two back-to-back storms pummeled Hawaii with rain and damaging winds, causing the worst flooding the state has seen in 20 years, authorities said. The catastrophic torrents of water washed out homes, damaged roads, and threatened failure of a 120-year-old dam in northern Oahu, prompting an emergency evacuation of thousands on March 20th. Evacuations had also been ordered for Halawa and Waialua, where an alert warned that all roads out were at risk of imminent failure. Leave now, the alert said. Governor Josh Green said there have been no deaths or people unaccounted for during the flooding, but called it the worst the state has seen since the early 2000s. Some 200 people have been rescued from the flooding, and about 10 presented at hospitals with hypothermia, he said. This is a major threat to our people and to our state, Green said at a news conference on March 20th. The morning of March 21st, the National Weather Service in Honolulu said two systems were driving rain, sometimes as heavy as 2 to 4 inches per hour, thunderstorms, and an increased risk of flash flooding, prompting a flood watch for the whole state through the afternoon of March 22nd. Water in the Kaukanahua stream near Waialua, just northwest of the reservoir, rose more than 10.5 feet on March 20th. That's several inches higher than it had reached on March 13th, according to Weather Service data. On March 20th, the Weather Service reported that a foot of water was flowing over a road 1 mile east of Waialua, inundated several cars and homes. Civilians had to be rescued and transported on a bulldozer, the bulletin stated. A series of low-pressure systems have struck Hawaii in March. They're a winter phenomenon, also called Kona lows or Kona storms for the Hawaii word Kona, meaning leeward. The winter storms typically impact the leeward side of the islands that are usually sheltered from trade winds and intense rains, according to Stephen Bussinger, a professor in the meteorology department at the University of Hawaii. On average, 1 to 2 Kona storms impact Hawaii during the November to March season, but it's very rare for 2 to form within the same month, let alone within a week, AccuWeather meteorologists said. The first round of storms impacted the islands March 10th through 16th, the outlet reported, and it brought local rainfall totals of over 4 feet. The flooding is the worst the state has seen since the 2004 Manoa flood, Green said. A flood on October 30th of 2004 was one of several flash floods amid a storm that brought heavy rain. Rain peaked at a rate of 1.29 inches in a 15-minute span and 8.7 inches in 6 hours. Damage from the March 2026 flooding could total $1 billion, Green said. That includes damage to numerous homes, roads, schools, airports, and a hospital on Maui, he said. One home on Kaihulo Drive in Mokulea near Waialua was swept onto the beach in a flash flood on the morning of March 20th. Remnants of the house appear to be split in half, and parts of the house appear to have collapsed, according to a storm report from the Weather Service. A road in Makaha Valley on Oahu was closed in both directions on March 20th after part of it collapsed, sending vehicles over the edge, another storm report said. We are just past the midway portion in our reading of the Cape Cod Times, dated today, Monday, March 23rd, and it's at this stage that we move to a different kind of local news, the obituaries and death notices that are listed in that day's Cape Cod Times. The first obituary in the Times of March 23rd is of Robert Alexander McDonald of East Sandwich, who at the age of 83 passed away peacefully at his home, surrounded by his loving family, on March 17th. He was born October 9, 1942 in Boston, the oldest of 5 children, and he graduated from Medford High School in 1960, receiving a BFA in art from the Mass College of Art in 1964 and an MFA in 1966 from the University of Illinois Champaign. Robert met his beloved wife of 59 years, Geraldine Jerry McDonald, in 1963, and after spending a few years of married life in northern Mass and southern New Hampshire, they relocated to East Sandwich in 1973, where they lived and flourished for the rest of Robert's life. Robert was an art professor and eventually the head of the art department at Cape Cod Community College for 28 years, establishing an art gallery and positively impacting the lives of so many students and fellow educators over the course of his career. He was an exceptionally talented artist and illustrator whose paintings, mixed media assemblages, greeting cards, and colorful ceramic mugs have graced the walls of many homes, galleries, and museums. Robert was a lifelong lover of music and movies with an astounding recall, and a complete day for him was being immersed in sound, color, and light. He was an extraordinary gardener, and the beautiful flowers and bountiful vegetables that he grew in his back garden brought joy to his family and to everyone who visited the home. Robert is survived by many family and friends. In lieu of flowers, the family is requesting donations be made to the Arts Foundation of Cape Cod. A viewing will be held from 1 to 4 p.m. Saturday, March 28th, that's this coming Saturday, at the Nickerson Bourne Funeral Home at 154 Route 6A in Sandwich. The burial is private. The next obituary is of Lawrence Larry Lindsay. Lawrence Larry Lindsay, 77, of North Falmouth, passed peacefully March 20th, surrounded by his family. He was born in Boston and resided in the suburbs until his career moved him to Annapolis, Maryland, and then Montvale, New Jersey. His true home was the house his father built in North Falmouth when he was 6 years old, and where he resided for the last 20 years. Larry took great pride in his property and joyfully spent countless hours landscaping and tending to the grounds and the house he loved so much. Larry built a successful career as the head of East Coast sales for the asthma division at Becton Dickinson, where he was respected for his drive, leadership, and integrity. He had a lifelong love of speed. He enjoyed riding his Harley motorcycles and spending time on the water in his Formula and Donzi boats. Anyone who knew Larry knew he was always looking for his next car and then personalizing it. Larry was a proud and devoted father to his daughters and a loving grandfather to his grandchildren, who brought him immense pride and happiness. He is survived by many family and friends. A visitation will be held this Thursday, March 26th, from 9:30 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. at Chapman Funerals and Cremations, 74 Algonquin Avenue, that's Route 151, in Mashpee. A funeral mass will be held on Thursday, March 26th at 11 a.m. at Christ the King Church, 5 Job's Fishing Road in Mashpee. Burial will immediately follow at North Falmouth Cemetery, 155 Old Main Road in North Falmouth. In lieu of flowers, donations may be made to Dana-Farber Cancer Institute, P.O. Box 849168, Boston, Mass. 02284-9168, or online at dana-farber.org, or to the Republican National Committee, 310 First Street, S.E., Washington, D.C., 20003, or online at rnc.org. Larry will be remembered for his strong, loving presence, his sense of pride in the life he built, and his deep love for his family. He leaves behind a lifetime of memories, love, and a place that will always feel like home. The next obituary is of Michael Wenzel of East Sandwich. The family of Michael John Wenzel of East Sandwich, Massachusetts, announced his passing on March 18th at the age of 74. Michael was born in New Kensington, Pennsylvania, June 3rd of 1951, and was a devoted husband, father, grandfather, great-grandfather, sibling, uncle, and friend. A hard-working and humble man, he always put his family first and never sought recognition for what he did for others. His kindness, gentle spirit, and quiet strength touched everyone who knew him. In 1982, Michael married the love of his life, Carol Marie Wenzel, with whom he shared 41 years of marriage. Together, they built a life centered on family, dedication, and unwavering support for their 3 children. Above all else, Michael was a family man. He took immense pride in his role as a grandfather and found his greatest joy in being present for his 6 cherished grandchildren. He rarely missed a game or a special milestone, whether cheering from the stands or spending quiet moments together, always making each grandchild feel deeply loved and supported. Michael was known for his steady presence, his sensitivity, and his warm heart. At home, Michael took great pride in keeping his yard immaculate, a reflection of his care, his discipline, and quiet dedication to the place he called home. Michael is survived by many, family and friends. He is reunited in eternal rest with his beloved wife Carol, whom he missed deeply. He'll be remembered as a loving husband, a devoted father, and a proud grandfather and great-grandfather. His legacy lives on in the family he treasured so deeply and the love he gave so freely. A visitation service will be held from 4 to 7 p.m. on this Wednesday, March 25th, at Nickerson Bourne Funeral Home, 154 Mass 6A in Sandwich, Mass. In lieu of flowers, any donations can be made to the Neuroendocrine Tumor Research Foundation at netrf.org. The next obituary is of Donald A. E. Swanson, Jr. of Hyannis. He was born in Rockport, Mass. in 1932. The family moved to Arlington, where he would attend Arlington High, graduating in 1951. There he met his high school sweetheart, Eleanor Corcoran, whom he would marry in 1955. Don attended UMass Amherst, where he majored in mechanical engineering, and he pitched for the UMass baseball team that went to the 1954 College World Series. After leaving school, Don signed with the Chicago Cubs organization and would go on to play 4 years of professional baseball, reaching the AAA level before calling it quits to spend more time with his growing family. Don loved sports and spent years coaching and running youth baseball and hockey programs for the town of Burlington. He was a popular figure in town, had many great stories to tell about his time with kids and parents. Don especially loved spending time with his family. Papa, as he was known, was a central figure in all Swanson home family activities. He was the only family member able to carry a tune, and his presence was required at all birthday and Christmas parties. Papa was very proud to have close relationships with all 16 of his grandchildren. He's survived by his wife Eleanor of 71 plus years and his 6 children and many, many more family and friends. Visiting hours will be held at the Hallett Funeral Home at 273 Station Ave in South Yarmouth on Tuesday, tomorrow, March 24th, from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. It will be followed by a funeral mass that will be celebrated at the Sacred Heart Chapel in Yarmouth Port at 10:30 a.m. The final obituary in today's Cape Cod Times is of Cheryl Cabral of Falmouth, who at the age of 79 passed peacefully on March 19th. Cheryl was born February 22nd of 1947 and was a graduate of Lawrence High School in Falmouth and a devoted member of St. Anthony's Church in East Falmouth. Cheryl's life was centered around her family, whom she cherished deeply. She is survived by her beloved husband, Thomas Cabral, and many family and friends. A wake will be held on Friday, March 27th, from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. at Chapman Funerals and Cremations at 475 Main Street in Falmouth. A funeral mass will take place this Saturday, March 28th, at 10 a.m. at St. Anthony's Catholic Church, 167 East Falmouth Highway in East Falmouth. Burial will follow the service. Cheryl's love for her family extended far and wide. Her memory will forever remain a source of comfort and inspiration to those who knew her. May she rest in eternal peace. And that concludes the obituaries that are listed in today's Cape Cod Times, dated Monday, March 23rd of 2026. Heading back to the front page for the hard news, Trump and Iran threaten energy targets, by Mayan Lubel, Alexander Cornwell, and Idrias Ali of Reuters in Tel Aviv. President Donald Trump and Iran threatened to escalate their war by attacking energy and desalination facilities in the Gulf, a potential widening of hostilities that could deepen a regional crisis and add to concerns in global markets. Air raid sirens sounded across Israel from the early hours of March 22nd, warning of incoming missiles from Iran, after scores of people were hurt overnight in 2 separate attacks in the southern Israeli towns of Arad and Dimona. The Israeli military said hours later that it was striking Tehran in response. Trump on March 21st threatened to obliterate Iran's power plants if Tehran did not fully reopen the Strait of Hormuz within 48 hours, suggesting a significant escalation barely a day after he talked about winding down the war, which is now in its 4th week. Iran said on March 22nd it would attack U.S. infrastructure, including energy facilities in the Gulf, if Trump carried out his threat, which he made as additional Marines and heavy landing craft continued to head to the region. Iran's parliament speaker, Mohammad Bakr Kalibaf, wrote on X that critical infrastructure and energy facilities in the Middle East could be irreversibly destroyed should Iranian power plants be attacked. More than 2,000 people have been killed during the war the United States and Israel launched on February 28th, which has upended markets, spiked fuel costs, fueled global inflation fears, and convulsed the post-war Western alliance. President Trump's threat has now placed a 48-hour ticking time bomb of elevated uncertainty over markets, said IG market analyst Tony Sycamore, who expects stock markets to fall on March 23rd as energy supplies remain strained. Oil prices jumped March 20th, ending the day at their highest in nearly 4 years, after Iraq declared force majeure on all oil fields developed by foreign firms. Israel attacked a major gas field in Iran, and Tehran responded with strikes on neighbors Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and Kuwait. Iranian attacks have effectively closed the Strait of Hormuz, a narrow waterway that carries around a fifth of global oil and liquefied natural gas supplies, causing the worst oil crisis since the 1970s. Quote, if Iran doesn't fully open without threat, capitalized, the Strait of Hormuz within 48 hours, capitalized, from this exact point in time, the United States of America will hit and obliterate their various power plants, starting with the biggest one first, capitalized, Trump posted on social media around 7:45 p.m. Eastern Time on March 21st. We are coming up on those 48 hours now. The Strait of Hormuz remains open to all shipping except vessels linked to Iran's enemies. The country's representative to the International Maritime Organization was quoted as saying in Iranian media reports that were published March 22nd. Ship tracking data has shown some vessels, such as Indian-flagged ships and a Pakistani oil tanker, have negotiated safe passage through the strait. Pakistan has good ties with Iran, while keeping close relations with the United States and Saudi Arabia. Iran's Khatam al-Anbiya military command headquarters said on March 22nd, if the United States hit Iran's fuel and energy infrastructure, Iran would launch attacks on all U.S. energy, information technology, and desalination infrastructure in the region. The Islamic Republic's power grid is deeply intertwined with its energy sector. Striking major plants could trigger blackouts, crippling everything from pumps and refineries to export terminals and military command centers. The risks of worsening regional conflict, highlighted by an Iranian threat to hit water-scarce Gulf states' desalination plants, are especially acute for the desert countries, whose populations and economies depend on the water-making facilities. While some, such as Saudi Arabia, Oman, and the United Arab Emirates, can draw on more than one sea, others, including Qatar, Bahrain, and Kuwait, sit crowded along the shoreline of the Gulf with no alternative coastline, leaving critical desalination plants exposed to any escalation targeting energy and infrastructure. Tehran fired long-range missiles for the first time on March 21st, expanding the risk of attacks beyond the Middle East, while an Iranian strike landed near Israel's secretive nuclear reactor about 8 miles southeast of the city of Dimona. Iran fired 2 ballistic missiles with a range of 2,500 miles at the U.S.-British Indian Ocean military base at Diego Garcia, said Israeli military chief Eyal Zamir. The fighting in the Gulf has been taking place alongside a confrontation on a separate front between Israel and Lebanon's Hezbollah, backed by Iran, with the Israeli military saying on March 22nd its troops had raided a number of the armed group's sites in southern Lebanon and had struck a main bridge linking Lebanon's south to the rest of the country. Hezbollah said it had attacked several border areas in northern Israel. Israeli emergency services said one person was killed in an Israeli kibbutz near the border, the first fatality in Israel, killed by fire from Lebanon since escalation began. Hezbollah has fired hundreds of rockets at Israel since it entered the regional war on March 2nd, prompting an Israeli offensive that's killed more than 1,000 people in Lebanon. Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz said the military had been ordered to destroy all bridges over the Litani River used for terrorist activity to prevent Hezbollah militants and weapons from moving south. He also said the military was ordered to accelerate the demolition of Lebanese homes in frontline villages to neutralize threats to Israeli communities. Katz described the approach as similar to the model used in Beit Hanun and Rafah in Gaza, where the military created buffer zones by clearing and demolishing buildings near the border. International law generally prohibits militaries from attacking civilian infrastructure, and the United Nations Human Rights Chief has criticized Israel's actions in Lebanon, particularly its use of widespread evacuation orders. A bit of lifestyle here. More Americans are cooking meals at home, by Jessica Geen of USA Today. As a busy single mom, Ellen Hornberger loved the convenience of having a restaurant meal deposited on her doorstep until she realized just how much delivery was costing her. After downloading a money management app in 2025, Hornberger discovered she was spending about 3/4 of her food budget, $942 a month, on takeout. She canceled DoorDash and started whipping up dinner at home, saving hundreds of dollars each month. Her 11-year-old daughter is cooking too. "I hated cooking, now I'm wearing an apron. Who am I?" said the 33-year-old sales program manager from New Jersey. "But if I'm changing my habits, the economy is changing." According to a recent YouGov survey, 3/4 of Americans now cook at least a few times per week. Only 2% never cook. Another 10% cook only once a month or less. Research suggests saving money is the top reason. Wages are still growing faster than prices on average, but the sour national mood over the high cost of living has persisted. Already, 1 in 5 shoppers rate their ability to afford everyday expenses as poor or terrible, an increase of 8.5 percentage points over the past 5 years, according to market research firm Kantar. More than half of Americans, 53%, dined out less often in the last 12 months to save money. Now, analysts fear food will only get more expensive as the Iran war drives up oil and gas prices. Even before this economic crunch, Americans had started to spend more time in the kitchen. More U.S. adults are cooking today than they were 2 decades ago, according to a 2025 National Institutes of Health analysis. That analysis found the percentage of men who cook on an average day rose from 36 to 52%, and from 69 to 72% for women. Annika Andring, 33, and her husband cook most of their meals at their Colorado home, from steak salad on a bed of arugula to an elevated boxed mac and cheese topped with savory meat and roasted vegetables. "We don't necessarily skimp on meals," said Andring, who works in human resources, "but it's always going to be cheaper at home than eating out." Cooking at home remains far more common than ordering takeout or delivery or eating at restaurants, according to Pew Research. Nearly 9 in 10 people eat home-cooked meals at least a few times a week, compared with 17% ordering takeout or delivery and 12% eating at restaurants that frequently, it found. On a recent evening, Robert Belpasso, who's 31 and works in the tech industry, was simmering homemade bone stock in his New York City apartment. On the menu was soup made from a $5 Costco rotisserie chicken and fresh vegetables from Whole Foods. The foodie's mom trained him to be cost-conscious and to scout for deals without sacrificing flavor or freshness. He can stretch tasty dishes he creates at home for $10 to $20 into 4 or 5 meals. "I don't overdo the budgeting or think too deeply about it," Belpasso said. "If I leave the supermarket and I've spent under $100, I'm happy." And we'll close with a little bit of sports. High school girls hockey. Cape and Islands All Scholastics by Alan Gunn. 6 of the 7 Cape and Islands girls high school hockey teams qualified for the Division II state tournament. Talent has to run deep in order for a region as small as Cape Cod to be able to do something like that, and the balance made for a tremendous Cape and Islands League championship race. Dennis Yarmouth Cape Cod Academy St. John Paul II, that's one school, one team, Falmouth, and Nauset Monomoy, again, one team, all grabbed a share of the league crown in a season full of twists and turns. Within those twists and turns, it took Falmouth's Maeve Turner just one season to break former teammate Casey Roth's all-time points record. The junior headlines a strong group of Cape Cod Times all-scholastic selections. Seniors left their final mark on their high school careers, but it was an 8th grader, the Dolphins' Sammy Precourt, that had the final say as league MVP. With underclassmen continuing to make a difference each and every night, it's safe to say that hockey on these shores is in good hands for years to come. Here is the 2025-2026 Cape Cod Times Girls High School Hockey All-Scholastics. Kate Buckler, a forward with Barnstable Upper Cape, Cape Tech. First-year Barnstable head coach Justin DeSorger hailed Buckler as the best offensive player on the team and one of the best in the Cape and Islands League, and she backed that statement up. The junior forward notched 25 goals and 12 assists for 37 points on her way to being named a league all-star. The junior is part of the National Honor Society, Human Rights, and the Key Club, as well as FPS, and she plays field hockey and lacrosse. Kat Cannon, forward for Barnstable Upper Cape, Cape Tech. DeSorger is building a strong roster, and that included 8th grader Kat Cannon. The center ranked behind only Buckler on the team for points with 21. She recorded 9 goals and 12 assists. Emma De Silva, forward and defense for Barnstable Upper Cape, Cape Tech. De Silva was a complete player for Barnstable, being utilized for both her offensive and defensive talent. She played all 5 positions on the ice across every situation possible, tallying 20 points, 10 goals, 10 assists, and was named a Cape and Islands League All-Star. Elle Collette, defense, Dennis Yarmouth, Cape Cod Academy, St. John Paul II team. Their head coach, Colin Myers, praised Collette as the heart and hustle of the group. Ellie always played with a chip on her shoulder, Myers said. She was a lockdown defenseman for our team. The sophomore recorded 12 points from the blue line, 3 goals and 10 assists, and the highlight goal came against Falmouth, and it turned out to be the winning goal. We'll now list them as time is getting short. Paige Fowler, forward for Dennis Yarmouth, Cape Cod Academy, and St. John Paul II. No sophomore slump for Fowler, who notched 29 points, 22 goals and 7 assists. Carolyn O'Keefe, defense, Dennis Yarmouth, Cape Cod Academy, St. John Paul II. One of the top defensemen in the Cape and Islands League this past season, she played nearly half of each game in all situations, power play, penalty kill, and 5-on-5. And she had 17 points, 7 goals, 10 assists. Riley Precourt, forward, Dennis Yarmouth, Cape Cod Academy, St. John Paul II. A phenomenal freshman year, turning in a team best and balanced 28 points. She had 15 goals and 13 assists during a Cape and Islands League All-Star season. Sammy Precourt, goalie for Dennis Yarmouth, Cape Cod Academy, St. John Paul II. Akira Umbrella, forward, Dennis Yarmouth, Cape Cod Academy, St. John Paul II. Violet Cox, a forward for Falmouth. Hadley Vieira, defense for Falmouth. Maeve Turner, forward for Falmouth. Abigail Geary, forward for Martha's Vineyard. McKenna Mittel, forward for Martha's Vineyard. Eleanor Moan, forward for Martha's Vineyard. Olivia Shuttleworth, forward for Nantucket. Alex Wizentainer, defense for Nantucket. Gabby Bassett, forward for Nauset Monomoy. Sophie Eldridge, defense for Nauset Monomoy. Julia Kipperman, forward for Nauset Monomoy. Anya Kelsch, defense for Sandwich BMC. Casey Pastilli, forward for Sandwich BMC. Chloe Schultz, forward for Sandwich BMC. And Elizabeth Stutzman, forward for Sandwich BMC. And with that, we've come to the end of our reading of the Cape Cod Times for today, Monday, March 23rd of 2026. This is your reader, Eric, saying be well, be safe, look after each other, and remember our veterans, especially those that we've lost recently. Bye for now.